The boarding gate hummed with final call tension. Overhead, a calm voice warned, Flight 227 to New York, 5 minutes before gate closure. David Holt held out his ticket. The woman behind the counter, Ruth Carter, didn't even scan it. Her eyes flicked to his face, then to his suit, then back again. "Sir, this line's for first class only." He blinked once, steady. "It's printed right there." She folded her lips. "So is everyone's name, sir." The fluorescent light trembled across his skin as murmurs rippled through the queue. David's thumb pressed against the paper until it creased. A small tear ran through the word, first. He didn't move, didn't argue. Only the hum of the terminal answered him, like the system itself had already decided who belonged where. Have you ever been treated like you didn't belong, not because of what you did, but because of what you looked like? Before we dive deeper, tell me, where in the world are you listening from right now? Drop your city in the comments. I want to know how far this story travels tonight. And if you believe that respect should never depend on a seat number, hit subscribe and join this channel where we tell the stories that demand to be heard. All right, take a breath, because the next moment at Gate 42 is where things start to burn quietly. Ruth Carter adjusted her badge, her mouth tightening into the shape of apology without the sound of it. The queue behind David shuffled, restless. The intercom crackled again, another reminder that time was folding in on him. "Ma'am," he said, holding out the ticket once more. His tone was gentle, rehearsed. "It's a first-class boarding pass." Ruth leaned closer, her perfume sharp and floral, something meant to hide fatigue but only revealing it. "Sir, these scanners can be sensitive. Sometimes, when companies book through bulk corporate portals, it mislabels employees as first class." David tilted his head. "Employees?" She shrugged, her hand hovering over the scanner as if the problem might resolve itself. "Happens all the time. I'm sure your travel desk can sort it next time." The words "your travel desk" landed like a soft slap. Too polite to call out, too condescending to ignore. Around them, the murmur grew. Someone coughed. A wheelie bag scraped the floor. A young woman, barely 20, with earbuds still dangling, lifted her phone, camera facing the scene. "What's happening?" she whispered to a friend. The screen reflected Ruth's crisp uniform, David's stillness, and the digital clock behind them ticking toward 4:55 p.m. Ruth caught sight of the camera and stiffened. "Sir, please don't make a scene." David's eyes flicked to the lens, then back to her. His voice was even. "A scene?" He opened his hand, the ticket, trembling slightly from the recycled air, and looked straight into Ruth's guarded eyes. "Funny thing about systems," he said quietly. "They print what they think you are." The words were soft, almost kind, but in them was something heavier, like a courtroom verdict delivered in a whisper. The young woman's camera blinked red, recording. Ruth frowned, lips thinning. "Look, sir, I'm just doing my job. These things happen." "These things," David repeated, his gaze lowering to the ticket, where first class was half smudged by his thumbprint. "You mean misprints or misunderstandings?" Before she could answer, a voice behind him spoke up, a man in a golf jacket, his tone a mixture of irritation and privilege. "Could you hurry it up? Some of us actually are first class." Ruth's eyes darted toward the man, then back to David. She looked embarrassed now, but only privately. Her professionalism forced her to keep the upper hand. "I'll call my supervisor," she said. "Please step aside, sir." Step aside. The phrase echoed louder than the speaker's hum. He'd been told that before, different words, same meaning. "You don't belong here yet." He glanced down. The corner of the ticket had torn a little further. The crease deepened from his grip. On the floor beside his shoe sat his leather briefcase, embossed with the faint silver logo Holt Aerotech. The letters caught the gate's fluorescent light, but no one noticed. Behind him, Maya whispered to her phone. "He's being super calm, but she won't even scan it." Her friend leaned closer. "Record it, girl." David exhaled slowly. The sound of it barely reached the microphone. Travis Lee, the shift supervisor, arrived with the calm impatience of someone trained to end problems, not understand them. He wore the tired smile of middle management, the kind that apologized for everyone and meant nothing. "What's the issue here?" he asked. Ruth gestured vaguely. "System glitch, I think. His ticket doesn't register correctly." Travis squinted at David's suit, then the torn ticket.
"Corporate mix-ups happen, sir. These bulk bookings can be messy."
Corporate. Mix-ups. Bulk. Every word stacked neatly like a coded reminder. "We know what kind of man we think you are." David held the man's gaze, polite but unyielding. "Would you like to try scanning it again?" Travis hesitated, then shook his head. "Let's not jam the reader before we finish boarding." The clock on the wall clicked. 4:57 p.m. 3 minutes left. The intercom purred again. Flight 227 final boarding call. Ruth looked relieved. "Sir, I can't delay the flight for one passenger." David straightened, his expression unreadable. Around him, a few passengers shifted uncomfortably. The young woman's phone kept rolling, the tiny red light unwavering. He bent down, lifted his briefcase, brushed the dust from its corner. The logo shimmered again in silver, his company's name, his life's work, unrecognized. He smiled faintly, almost to himself. "You're right," he said. "No one should be delayed because of one passenger." Ruth blinked, unsure whether it was surrender or something else. David stepped back, not in defeat, but in a deliberate pause, a man measuring the depth of a wound before deciding how to treat it. As he stood, the overhead lights flickered once, reflecting in the phone's lens. The camera caught his expression, calm, wounded, dangerous in its restraint. The girl whispered, "He's someone." But no one yet knew who. The air at Gate 42 thickened into silence. Even the luggage carousel in the distance seemed to hush. The intercom broke through it. 3 minutes to gate closure. Ruth's fingers hovered over the scanner again. "Sir, please," she said, her tone softer but more defensive now. "You don't have to raise your voice." David blinked slowly. He wasn't raising it at all. His words came quiet, deliberate, almost tender. "I'm not." But the accusation hung heavier than volume. A man of his stature, his color, being told to lower his tone. It drew every eye in the line, like static electricity. Maya's phone tilted upward. The lens caught both of them in frame. His calm, her fear. The image trembled slightly in her unsteady hand. "He's not even yelling," she whispered to her friend. Ruth stepped back half a pace, arms crossed like a shield. "You're making people uncomfortable." He almost smiled at that, the irony. The people shifting uncomfortably weren't because of him, but because of what they were watching happen. Behind the counter, the boarding gate screen flickered. "First class, now boarding." Beside it, the small digital clock blinked. 4:58 p.m. David exhaled through his nose, the air trembling in the mic of Maya's phone. "Miss Carter," he said evenly, "you've already decided what kind of man I am. Now you're afraid I'll confirm it." Her eyes darted. "That's not fair." "No," he said softly. "It isn't." He raised the ticket again, holding it between two fingers, like evidence at trial. The tear down the word "first" looked wider now. Under the fluorescent glare, the paper almost shimmered. "If this ticket can't tell the truth," he said, turning toward Maya's camera, "maybe the camera will." Maya's breath caught. The phone trembled. Her live stream counter flashed from 12 viewers to 70. "Sir," Ruth warned, glancing at the crowd, "if you keep recording this—" "I'm not," David interrupted, still facing her. "But the truth usually records itself." A chuckle somewhere in the line, nervous, sharp, quickly silenced. Travis reappeared, clipboard in hand, sensing trouble he couldn't quite name. "Everything all right here?" Ruth's voice came quick. "He's refusing to comply." David turned to him slowly. "I'm refusing to disappear." The supervisor blinked, caught off guard by the precision of the answer. The silence that followed wasn't empty. It was thick, morally charged. People shifted, pretending not to listen. but no one looked away. 2 minutes to gate closure, the intercom announced. Ruth's composure cracked just slightly, a tremor in her jaw. "Sir, please step aside. I don't want this to escalate." He tilted his head. "Neither do I." She swallowed. "Then please lower your tone." That did it. For one long second, no one moved. Even Maya's phone froze mid-frame. He didn't speak. He simply looked at her steady, unflinching, sorrow blooming behind restraint. The moment stretched so thin it might have snapped if the intercom hadn't intervened again. Final minute before gate closure. The sound seemed to release the tension, like a slow exhale. David stepped back, placing the ticket gently on the counter. "Keep it," he said. "It seems to know more about me than I do." Ruth stared at the paper, at the torn edge glowing faintly in the light. The crowd stayed silent, caught between guilt and curiosity. As David turned, the camera followed him, the steady frame of a man choosing dignity over defense. The metallic click of his briefcase echoed against the tiled floor, a rhythm too calm for the chaos around him. The door behind the counter beeped open for another passenger, someone white, younger, laughing into a phone. They handed over a crumpled ticket, unscanned, and Ruth waved them through. Maya whispered, She didn't even check." David heard it. He didn't turn back. The gate light flashed red once, then green. Gate closing in 60 seconds. He walked 3 paces away and stopped beside the wide airport window. Planes taxied across the dusk runway, engines humming like a distant argument. For a moment, his reflection merged with the glass half his face, half the departing light. He looked tired, not defeated, just older than a minute ago. Ruth reached for the scanner again, her hands shaking just enough for the device to beep in protest. A thin red line blinked across its small screen. Invalid seat class. She turned the screen toward David as if the words absolved her. "You see, it's the system," she said. "It's not me." He looked at it for a long second, the reflection of those words cutting across his eyes. "The system," he repeated softly, as though testing how much faith it could carry. Behind them, Maya's live stream counter flickered. 40 viewers, 112, 276, 600. Comments began to scroll. What's happening? She didn't even scan it right. This guy's so calm. Travis, the supervisor, hovered near the counter, pretending to type on a tablet. "Sir," he said with a manufactured kindness, "maybe next time check with your company's travel desk. These things usually come from booking mismatches." David raised his eyes to him, patient, deliberate. "And what should I check for, exactly?" Travis hesitated. "The right class assignment, perhaps?" David almost smiled. "The right class." The phrase hung there, thin, polite, poisonous. He turned his gaze back to the scanner, still blinking red. "You're telling me a piece of paper is wrong about me, and a machine agrees." Travis shifted, uncomfortable. "It's not about you personally, sir. It's procedural." David nodded slowly. "Procedural injustice. I've read about that." Ruth frowned, defensive again. "We don't make the rules." "No," he said, voice even. "You just enforce them." For a moment, she looked like she wanted to argue, but the screen flashed again, demanding her attention. Invalid seat class. David leaned closer, voice barely above a whisper. "Machines only learn what people teach them." She flinched, as if the scanner had burned her. The terminal lights flickered once. A faint smell of jet fuel leaked from the corridor beyond the glass. Through the window, a line of passengers crossed the tarmac under the amber glow of evening. The intercom hummed, detached and impersonal. "Gate 42, final call for Flight 227. Ruth glanced at Travis. "Should I mark him as delayed?" Travis sighed. "Do what you need to do. We'll file a report." David's laugh was low, almost kind. "A report." He straightened the briefcase at his side, glinting in the light. "That's the beauty of systems, isn't it? They can file injustice into silence." He stepped back from the counter, leaving the torn ticket on its surface. The scanner's red light washed over it like a wound that refused to close. Maya whispered to her phone, "They're just blaming the computer." Her friend answered, "Yeah, but look, he's not mad." David turned slightly, catching her reflection in the gate glass. "Anger doesn't fix systems," he said, not realizing he'd spoken aloud. "Truth does." Ruth swallowed. "Sir, please, you're holding up boarding." He looked past her at the line of passengers' business suits, weekend sweaters, noise-canceling headphones moving forward with the kind of confidence that came from never being doubted. "I wouldn't want to delay them," he said, stepping aside. But even as he moved, the scanner continued to flash, the words "invalid seat class" strobing across the ticket's torn edge. The reflection pulsed against his briefcase, like a warning he already understood. It wasn't just the machine that was broken. It was everything that believed it. The hum of the terminal softened into background noise. Time itself seemed to hesitate around Gate 42. The crowd didn't disperse. They lingered, pretending to scroll phones, to tie shoes, to cough anything to keep watching. Maya's livestream counter jumped again. 1, 8K, 3, 2K, 5K. Comments flooded in like a tide. "He's calm. She's not. The guy's got class. Why does she look nervous?" David stood motionless, the ticket still resting on the counter. The torn edge fluttered slightly in the recycled air. Ruth avoided looking at him now, her eyes fixed on the blinking red scanner like it was a wound she couldn't bandage. Travis murmured into his earpiece, pretending to manage the situation while doing nothing to fix it. David's voice broke the tension, steady and low. "You know," he said, almost conversational, "respect is a flight some people never board." Ruth's lips parted, ready to respond, but nothing came out. She looked tired. Not cruel, just trapped like someone defending a wall she didn't build but couldn't step away from. He leaned slightly toward her, not threatening, just present. "You've spent your life helping people board planes, but somehow, the ones like me always have to show extra papers to prove we belong." Her hands trembled against the counter. "I'm just doing my job." "I know," he said softly. "That's what makes it sad." The words weren't sharp. They were heavier than anger, the kind that sinks instead of strikes. Behind them, the scanner beeped again, mechanical, unfeeling, invalid seat class. Travis sighed audibly. "Sir, maybe you can wait for the next flight." David turned, finally facing him. The briefcase in his hand gleamed faintly, the Holt Aerotech insignia catching the light. "I built the algorithms that your flight systems use to calculate seat assignments," he said. "And still, your machine can't see me." The sentence rippled through the gate like a current. Ruth blinked, unsure if she'd heard correctly. Travis opened his mouth, then closed it again. David smiled, a quiet, almost weary thing. Irony flies first class today, it seems. Maya's phone trembled in her hand. Her chat exploded. "Wait, he's the CEO? This just got real." "Holy crap! His company runs the airport data!" David didn't seem to notice. He stooped, picked up the torn ticket, smoothed it gently against the counter. The small crease down the middle caught the terminal light like a scar healed wrong. He looked at Ruth again, but there was no accusation in his eyes, only reflection. "When you tear a ticket," he said, "you don't destroy its value. You just make it harder to scan." Her eyes glistened for a second, quickly blinked away. "Sir, please," Travis muttered, glancing nervously at the watching crowd. "Let's not make this a scene." David straightened. A scene implies performance. This is just clarity. The overhead speaker cracked to life. Final boarding for Flight 227, New York. Ruth exhaled shakily. "If you just step aside, we can resolve this later." He nodded once, calm. "Later is what systems always promise people like me. Later never boards either." He turned away from the counter and walked toward the terminal window. The light outside had changed gold, bleeding into blue as dusk swallowed the runway. Maya's lens followed him. The reflection in the glass caught his silhouette beside a departing plane. Engines roaring, indifferent. Someone whispered behind her. He could have yelled, but he didn't. Another voice answered. That's what makes it worse. David stood there, motionless, watching the plane taxi away. His reflection overlapped with the blinking first-class sign above the gate, two versions of belonging that didn't recognize each other. He breathed once, deeply, the kind of breath that rewrites anger into patience. Then he said, almost to himself, respect is a flight some people never board. And this time, it wasn't just Maya's camera that caught it. It was the entire room, every witness suddenly aware that calm could be louder than rage. The terminal's low hum fractured under the sudden crackle of the intercom. Passenger Holt, please confirm your boarding status. The name hit the air like a misfired bullet, crisp, official, amplified, heads turned. People who hadn't even been paying attention now looked up, curious, assessing. Maya's live stream exploded. 20,000 viewers. The caption, they're calling him out over a misprinted ticket? Her comments poured like a flood. That's messed up. How's his name on the speaker but not on the seat? Corporate racism, anyone? David stood perfectly still, the sound of his name echoing through the speakers a second time. Passenger Holt, please proceed to the gate counter immediately. The words were supposed to summon, not shame. But here, they branded him, made him the problem in a room that had quietly agreed he might be. Ruth shifted uncomfortably. It's an automated alert, sir. Happens when the system detects unresolved boarding. He looked at her, calm. So the machine thinks I'm unresolved. Travis frowned. Please, sir, this isn't personal. David's lips curved faintly. That's what makes it worse. Behind him, passengers murmured that anxious, embarrassed noise people make when they know something's wrong but hope someone else fixes it. Maya's camera panned between Ruth's flushed face and David's stillness. On her feed, the contrast was cinematic. Chaos and composure in one frame. He's literally doing nothing wrong. Why won't they just scan it? Tag at Airwatch Traveler. They post this kind of thing. Within seconds, the post was reshared by @AirWatchTraveler, a travel influencer with millions of followers. The viewer count spiked to 24K. The intercom crackled again. Passenger Holt, final boarding call. The second time, the voice didn't sound like an airline employee anymore. It sounded like judgment. David looked toward the ceiling speaker, as if addressing the invisible system itself. Do you know who you're calling? Or just what you're labeling? A man nearby lowered his phone mid-call, eyes widening. Ruth whispered, Sir, please don't make this worse. Worse? David's voice was quiet, but it carried. You already announced me like a missing item. What's worse, being invisible or being displayed? No one answered. Even Travis looked down. The red scanner light blinked again, steady as a heartbeat. Invalid seat class. Maya zoomed in on it. The comments erupted. Still invalid? This looks bad for the airline. That man's company name is on his briefcase. Holt Aerotech, same as the system they're using. The irony began to spread like wildfire. People started searching the name. Within minutes, tweets appeared. Airline denies seating to the man whose company built their ticketing infrastructure. Number Torn Ticket CEO. A journalist retweeted it. A producer DM'd Maya for permission to use the footage. The hum of the airport now had rhythm, the rhythm of a story breaking in real time. Travis's phone buzzed in his pocket. He checked the notification and went pale. Oh, no. Ruth glanced at him. What? He didn't answer. The intercom spoke again, almost mockingly soft now. Passenger Holt, last opportunity to board. David lifted his gaze toward the ceiling one last time. The voice had called his name 3 times, not once out of respect. He whispered, more to himself than anyone. Funny. The system that built me doesn't recognize me. Ruth blinked. Excuse me? He turned to her, meeting her eyes with that calm, devastating composure. You don't have to understand it. Just remember how it sounds when a system calls your name like a warning. The boarding gate beeped open again, a sterile sound, indifferent to what it had just done. Maya kept her phone up, her voice trembling with something between awe and anger. They called his name like he was a problem, not a person. David adjusted his tie. The torn ticket still glowed red under the scanner light. He didn't take it. Outside, the runway lights flickered in the dusk, aligning one by one, a system preparing to launch what it couldn't yet see clearly. Inside Gate 42, the system had already revealed itself. And everyone watching all 20,000 finally saw it too. The intercom's tone chimed once, sharp as a blade. Gate closing in 30 seconds. And suddenly, everything happened at once. The boarding light flashed amber. Ruth's scanner stuttered with another red blink. Travis's phone buzzed violently as corporate alerts poured in. Maya's live stream counter jumped again, 45K, 62K, 80,000. The hashtag burned across her screen, numbered Torn Ticket CEO. The camera caught David standing in that same calm stillness, the torn ticket between his fingers now half illuminated by the terminal's harsh overhead glow. The letters First Class looked ghostly, half erased, half glowing like a truth fighting to be seen. Ruth's voice cracked. "Sir, I need you to step aside now." He didn't move. "Gate closing in 20 seconds, the speaker warned. David's voice came low, but it cut through the noise like static turned holy. Systems fail when humans hide behind them. The words echoed not just in the air, but in every watching phone, every comment box filling faster than the gate could close. Maya's camera zoomed in. Ruth flinched, as if the words had weight. Travis froze, mid-keystroke, eyes flicking to the growing crowd. Someone whispered, "He's right." Someone else, "I'd have lost it by now." David turned toward Ruth, not angry, but resolute. "Do you know what happens when the people who build the system start losing faith in it?" She swallowed. I just follow procedure." "That's the problem," he said softly. "Procedure needs courage, too." Her scanner beeped again, one last defiant error. Invalid seat class. Maya's camera panned over the screen. Her chat exploded. He made that system. The machine's rejecting its own creator. Poetic justice in real time. David looked down at the torn ticket in his hand. "A system only recognizes what it's told to see," he murmured. "And right now, it doesn't see me." The final boarding chime sounded. Gate 42 now closing. The automatic door began to slide. Ruth's breath hitched. "Sir, please, if I close it, you'll miss your flight." He turned to her, the faintest smile ghosting across his lips. "Maybe it's not my flight that's closing." And for a heartbeat, nobody breathed. The scanner light blinked red, then, for the first time, flickered to green. A pause. No one touched it. No one dared. Maya gasped. The viewers flooded with messages. It just switched. Did someone override it? This is history. The door stopped mid-close. Travis stepped forward, baffled. That's impossible." Ruth whispered, "The system just verified him." David's voice, calm but unshakable, filled the space. Maybe it remembered who built it. The sound of applause didn't start as clapping. It began as breath, released all at once, the collective exhale of 80,000 digital witnesses and 50 physical ones who'd been holding air too long. But the moment wasn't victory. Not yet, because the light flickered again, uncertain, like the truth trying to hold its place. David's reflection in the gate glass looked back at him, steady, shadowed, waiting. The intercom buzzed once more, glitching on his name. Passenger Holt. Then, silence. Ruth froze, her hand trembling over the terminal. The screen shifted. A single line of text appeared in sharp white letters. "Passenger David Holt, first class verified." The crowd gasped. For a second, no one moved. Even the machine seemed stunned into silence. The intercom, as if confused by its own betrayal, crackled and went dead. Ruth's voice came out small, uncertain.
It says, "First class." I must have read it wrong. David's head turned slowly toward her. No anger, no triumph, just a quiet, devastating clarity. "No, ma'am," he said softly. "The paper didn't lie. You just didn't read me right." The words rippled outward across the crowd, across the live stream, across 100,000 screens where people leaned in, holding their breath. Maya's camera caught the exact moment Ruth's expression shifted from defensiveness to realization. It wasn't about the ticket anymore. It never had been. The live stream comments flooded like applause. That line. Iconic. Say it again, for the people in the back. Justice served live. Travis stammered, "Sir, on behalf of Skynorth Airlines, I sincerely..." David raised a hand, cutting him off without hostility. "Don't apologize to me. Fix the scanner." He stepped forward, picked up the torn ticket from the counter. The crease down the word "first" now framed it perfectly, like it had been split, just to reveal the truth underneath. The glass behind him reflected the scene. Ruth with her trembling hands, Travis fumbling with his tablet, and David standing still, the torn ticket glowing in his grasp. Maya whispered into her phone, "He's not even mad. He's just right." A cheer broke out in the live stream chat, people posting the quote, "screenshots, slow motion edits in real time." The hashtag number #TornTicketCEO began trending worldwide. David placed the ticket back down gently, like setting a burden to rest. "This paper's been through a lot," he said, "but it never stopped being what it was." Ruth swallowed, her eyes glassy. "I didn't mean..." He stopped her with a small nod. "I know. Neither did the system, right?" That hit harder than any accusation. The lights above flickered once. Steadying into a softer hue, the sterile fluorescence dimmed, replaced by the golden wash of dusk sneaking through the window. Outside, a plane lifted off, engines roaring like distant thunder. The sound filled the silence, powerful and indifferent. David turned toward the glass, watching it rise. For a moment, the reflection aligned perfectly. The plane ascending above his shoulder, the torn ticket catching the light, his name glimmering on the scanner screen behind him, "First class verified." He spoke quietly, almost to himself, but the microphones caught it. "Sometimes justice doesn't arrive on time, but it still flies." Maya's camera zoomed in. The comments erupted again. "This man just ended discrimination with poetry. Respect beyond words. Every airport needs this energy." Ruth finally exhaled, trembling. "Sir, what do I do now?" David turned, his expression kind but firm. "Start by reading people right." The crowd parted as he walked past, silent, reverent. Maya lowered her phone slowly, unable to blink. Behind him, the gate display refreshed itself automatically. The green light stayed. The crowd was dispersing now, but the air still hummed with what had just happened. Screens across the terminal replayed the viral clip in loops, David's calm voice, the scanner turning green, Ruth's stunned silence. He stood by the window, watching the plane that had left without him disappear into the clouds. The noise faded, replaced by the low throb of jet engines, far away. Behind him, footsteps approached, soft, uncertain. "Mr. Holt." He didn't turn. "You should be with your team, Miss Carter." "I'm off duty now," she said quietly. "They told me to take a break." He finally turned. Ruth looked smaller without the counter between them. Her uniform jacket was draped over one arm, her eyes rimmed red from holding back something she didn't want anyone to see. "I owe you an apology," she said. David studied her for a moment. "I think you owe yourself one first." Ruth blinked. "I didn't mean..." "I know," he interrupted gently. "Most people never mean the harm they cause. That's what makes it last longer." Silence stretched. Heavy, but not cruel. She swallowed. "You know, this isn't the first time that Scanner humiliated someone." He raised an eyebrow. She hesitated. 5 years ago, I was up for promotion. Senior gate lead. I trained every new hire, ran every holiday shift. They told me I didn't have the image for it. Her voice cracked on the word. David's tone softened. Image. She nodded. Said I didn't project the Sky North brand. Translation, too old, too plain. They picked a younger girl with straighter teeth. He looked down at the ticket still in his hand, torn and smoothed 100 times over. You were turned away by a system, too. Ruth laughed weakly. Guess we both got turned away by the same door. That line hung in the space between them, fragile but true. Maya, still standing at a distance, caught the moment through her phone. She didn't stream it, she just recorded, quietly, reverently. The tone had changed. This wasn't for the world anymore. It was for history. David leaned against the glass. You know what's strange? He said. The same door keeps closing, generation after generation. Different faces, same handle. Ruth exhaled slowly. Maybe it's time someone jammed it open. He met her gaze. Maybe it's time someone redesigned it. The plane outside vanished into a streak of cloud. The sunset bled orange across the glass, bathing them both in a light that made no distinction. Ruth glanced at the ticket in his hand. Are you keeping that? He turned it over, the tearline catching the sunlight. Scars tell stories better than trophies. Her lips curved into a faint, regretful smile. Then I hope yours heals better than mine. He nodded once, then offered her the torn paper. It's both of ours now. For the first time all day, Ruth hesitated, then accepted it. Her hand brushed his briefly, a quiet exchange of recognition. No crowd, no cameras, no algorithm watching. Just two people both failed by the same machine, both still standing. And somewhere in the ceiling, one of the speakers crackled softly back to life, as if the system itself was listening now. The hotel room was quiet enough to hear the air conditioning sigh. David sat by the window, city lights flickering below, like coded messages. He had taken off his jacket. His shirt sleeves were rolled up, the weight of the day still clinging to him. On the table beside him lay the torn ticket smoothed out now, its edges carefully aligned. A coffee cup sat next to it, untouched. The TV in the background played on mute, breaking news banners flashing his name. Sky North announces temporary shutdown of autoprint system. Bias audit initiated. He watched the scrolling text, unreadable to anyone else but him. It wasn't triumph, it was consequence. His phone buzzed, a message from Maya. They're calling it the Holt audit. Another from Ruth. For what it's worth, thank you for not yelling. He smiled faintly, then exhaled. His reflection in the window looked older, not defeated, but redefined. He reached for the ticket, pressing it flat between two pieces of printer paper, smoothing the crease until the word first appeared whole again, even if only barely. Under his breath, he whispered, "It wasn't the paper that tore. It was me." The line hung there, soft and personal, a confession to no one, a forgiveness to everyone. Outside, dawn began to climb the skyline. A faint pink glow touched the edges of the buildings. The world quietly rebooting. He folded the ticket once more and slipped it into his notebook. On the first page, he wrote a single line in calm handwriting. Policy without empathy is machinery without soul. The phone buzzed again, a notification from the airline's official account. Statement: We have initiated a full bias review of our passenger verification systems. Effective immediately, all automated class assignments are paused pending audit. Beneath it, a second post. Every passenger deserves to be seen for who they are. Sky North Airlines. David closed the phone and leaned back. For the first time, he didn't feel like proving anything. The city outside came alive. Traffic starting, sirens in the distance, people boarding flights that would land hours later without ever knowing a gate, once became a stage for justice. He looked out at the horizon and said it aloud. more for himself than anyone else. They said my seat wasn't first class. Turns out, it never was about the seat. A pause. The light caught his eyes, soft and golden. He smiled, a small, human thing. The kind of smile you give when the world, for once, feels teachable. And then he whispered, almost inaudibly, "We both got through the door, Ruth." The camera of dawn panned outward, the skyline reflecting the first sunlight, the city moving again. Justice, at last, didn't shout. It just hummed quietly, like a system learning to breathe. What did you feel when the scanner finally turned green? Relief? Anger? Or maybe recognition? Tell me in the comments, what would you have done if you were David, standing there with that torn ticket? If this story made you pause, like it, share it with someone who's ever been judged too quickly, and don't forget to subscribe so you never miss the next true story that fights for dignity, one beat at a time.